What's it
Yeah.
like in your neck of the woods at the moment? How's your day going?
I'm wearing a coat indoors.
Yeah. I guess.
It's cold.
I
Yeah, it's
tell you,
good. It's winter. This is like for us, it's the coldest time of year, February. But it's a nice blue sunny day, just cold, but all good.
well, it's going to be the exact opposite next week because mid to late February is about the bloody hottest you can get in Australia. So
Yeah,
bit of change of pace.
the exact opposite. But I remember it well when we did Soundwave Festival 2013. The last time Sylosis was there, the only time. I remember the first show we did was Brisbane, and I remember my shoes practically melting to the floor.
Yeah.
Yeah,
In Brizzy at will. I remember last time I was at a festival in Brisbane. I went from Sydney to Brisbane. It was about a 10-degree difference. The humidity was through the roof, and I was sitting there going, because I'm blonde and ginger. I was like, I'm just going to die. Like I'm just going to die. That's what it is.
yeah. You don't want to be outside. I mean, I, even if we wanted to be on outside on this tour, we have no time to do that. The schedule is going to be brutal. I'm really excited for it. I think we're going to have a good time, but I know it's going to be hard work. It's going to be get to the venue, set up our gear, play the show, pack down all our gear, get to the hotel like after one, wake up first thing, get all our gear to the airport, fly, repeat. There's one day off we have in Melbourne, which
Oh,
will be
that's all
nice.
right. Look, I'm from Sydney myself, but Melbourne's a beautiful city. At least you can,
I love it. Yeah,
yeah.
I've been to Australia a bunch, obviously with architects. This is like maybe my sixth or seventh time, and yeah, I love it there. And Melbourne in particular, the weather's maybe not quite as brutal, but maybe that's not the case in summer. But I have friends there, and I know the spots to go eat and get coffee, all that kind of thing.
That's the important thing to know because that's what you got to know. And it's funny you mentioned Melbourne's weather. Like, mate, that place is four seasons in a day. It can be raining, 40 degrees, freezing, and a hurricane, and that's all in 4
Yep.
hours. Like, yeah. But
Yeah.
it's good fun, and it's good to finally see you come back. It's been a minute. You come back with AngelMaker as well, so it's a heavy show. How are you feeling about it? Because, like I said, you're literally about to get on a plane in a couple of days to make your way down here.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I mean, it's we would have been coming to Australia non-stop if the offers had come in,
Yeah.
and we're I guess a lot of fans don't always realize when tours get announced or the scheduling or the routing of a tour. Why aren't you coming to my city? It's like the offers come in and we say yes,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then we go and do the tour. So we just no opportunities came up after 2013, and then obviously I was in architects for a while, and Sylosis was on a hiatus. But yeah, I love being in Australia. I'm very excited for the shows, and just going off like Spotify stats, it's one of our like biggest markets in
Yeah.
terms of the streaming numbers. So I also have no idea what the demographic of our fans have jumped on more recently or have been with us for a while. We're definitely going to try and mix up the set list and play stuff from all over the years, and go back to the first two records. But I don't know what
Yeah.
our audience looks like there. This is our first time headlining as well, so it's going to be exciting. I think we're just happy to be there. It's nice to, get a bit of sun this time of year as well. If but I honestly, it was a funny thing. The last time I was in Australia was the start of 2023, and we
Yeah.
always used with architects. We'd like it seemed like every tour we did usually started in Adelaide, and we'd always be at the same hotel, and we'd wake up super early for the jet lag and go to the same breakfast spot every time. And I remember I walked in there, and as soon as I walked in, Edge of the Earth came on, like someone put Sylosis on over the whole shop, and like
No
there
way.
must have been like 20 people in there, and the guy behind the counter was just like, I was like, okay, cool. So people know who Sylosis are, and that's an older record. So
Yeah, bloody yeah.
it's funny. We'll see.
Oh, mate, you got to love that. It's the little things
Oh yeah,
sometimes in life. Like it's the little things.
exactly.
And I was going to say the fact that you're coming down here and you mentioned, oh, come to my city, come to my city. You're playing Perth as well. That is the. I always like to joke that whenever you post a tour, everyone's come to Brazil. If you post an
Yeah,
Australian tour, it's come to Perth. So you're coming to Perth. You're
yeah.
doing it.
I mean, it's one of those things. I can't remember every like. I'm terrible with like remembering cities when we're on tour. So I look back at the Architects tours that I did in Australia, and I can remember being in Perth, but I don't remember how many times we played Perth on each tour.
Yeah.
But I feel like, and don't shoot the messenger, this is just the memory. I feel like the Perth show was not as well as attended as any of the others. So aside from the fact, I guess it would suck being in Perth and bands not going there. But if you're a band that has to play a venue this size because you have to sell X amount of tickets to pay for all your crew and all your flights,
Yeah.
if there's not many people going to shows in Perth because of
It's just
how,
population.
how
That's
many
all it
people
is.
live,
Yeah,
population
it is just
or fans
population.
of your music,
Yeah.
that's why it doesn't happen. It's definitely not bands going, we don't like Perth, we don't want to play there. There'll be like booking agent and management decisions on, well, it doesn't make sense to go to Perth, or
Yeah.
I don't know.
Look, to
But
give you
we're just going over having fun. We're
exactly.
stoked to be there. I love
And
Perth as well. I definitely spent time there.
and you'll be spending time again. So anyone out there who's from Perth watching the show, bring your friend to the show so they can come down a second time.
Yeah, I think we were like a lot of the time we'd end up flying into Perth,
Yeah.
like from the UK, like direct to Perth sometimes. And we've definitely spent a lot of time at this place. I mean, where the Bon Scott statue is. It's
Yeah.
not far from the airport, but there's like a restaurant there or like a beer place. I don't drink, but yeah, we'd always just be sat on the water, just chilling out before flying home in Perth.
It's funny you
So
said a beer.
it's a great place.
It's
Yeah,
funny that you said a beer place. I'm like, yeah, in Australia, that really narrows it down. Yeah, yeah, good
yeah,
job.
yeah,
No,
yeah.
mate, but it's exciting to have you back, and it's exciting for the new music to keep coming out because you're fully diving into it these days as well. But how was the time in Architects kind of influencing new stuff, or is it kind of like you got that bit out of your system and now you're kind of totally focused on Sylosis and what you've always envisioned this band being?
Um, yeah. I mean, I think it was good to have a break from Sylosis. I needed that to come back with fresh perspective because not everyone knows this, but the band was on hiatus almost half a year before I joined Architects. It wasn't like I just stopped Sylosis, but we didn't announce the hiatus. I
Ah,
got to a point where I was really frustrated and kind of boxed myself in musically. When we got signed to Nuclear Blast and when we were trying to make a name for ourselves as a young band, uh, I came from growing up listening to like extreme metal and death metal stuff and black metal, and I
yep,
loved it. At the same time, it was, you know, the era of new metal that when I was a kid. So I was
yeah.
into like Korn and Slipknot and Deftones, and then, you know, getting into like metalcore and hardcore bands more like Hatebreed, Poison the Well, that kind of thing. But I do remember being like, all my friends that liked all the extreme heavy stuff did not like all this stuff, and it was
Yeah.
like pick a lane. So with Sylosis, it was like, right, we're gonna tune our guitars up. Metalcore and deathcore was in. We don't want to get lumped in with it. Just I was also kind of bored of that stuff. As much as I like, as I said, like bands like Hatebreed or whatever, there was all these bands around that period. You'd play a local show and there'd be so many bands doing a really generic, boring breakdown and
Yeah.
like a really bad Swedish Killswitch Engage influence riff. And I love Killswitch Engage as well. But we're just like, we need to separate ourselves from that. So we're trying to be more like proper metal and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Nothing that resembled a breakdown was allowed because we didn't want to get called a metalcore band. But all of that led to me feeling like I wasn't having fun in Sylosis because of that stuff. Like playing live would be like playing all these technical riffs, singing, just grounded to the spot with a mic stand. Then I'm not singing, I've got to play a solo. And it just didn't, it wasn't like fun. Like just, I want to just
Yeah.
play some meathead, super fun, heavy riffs. If it resembles a breakdown, I don't care. But I did care back when we were younger because I was like, oh, we need to pick out this different lane to separate ourselves off. But I grew up loving, you know, like those early Machine Head records, all the Pantera stuff in the 90s. So those records had what people would call breakdowns.
Yeah. Of course I
But
did.
but if and I was scared to put those in our music. And even now, people will be like, say things about the new record, like, oh, you can hear it sounds a bit like Architects. It's like, well, no, that's just that's kind of like a lazy, and I can see why people might think that, but that's actually me just being like, No, I never used to allow us to do a breakdown like
Yeah,
Davidian back in the day, and that's why I grew up loving. Like all the groovy mid '90s stuff like Pantera and Sepultura, as well as all the more extreme side of things. But um, yeah, I just don't care anymore. If people call us metalcore now, I just don't care.
yeah,
But I think the metal scene back in the day was way more elitist and more, I don't know, compartmentalized. And the lines are so blurred now. People just, if they like the band, they like the band.
yeah. Which is a beautiful thing as well. And it's funny you mentioned breakdowns like Davidian and Domination. Was like people pretended there was never a breakdown before those. Like Domination's
Yeah,
probably
yeah,
still the best breakdown of all time. Like it's just one of those things people like to ignore because no, that didn't happen. La 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 la. No breakdowns
well,
existed.
yeah. I guess they're
Yeah,
presented in a different way.
yeah,
And if people can hear like similarities between Sylosis and Architects, I don't think anything I write in Sylosis sounds like Architects before I joined. And if anything in Sylosis sounds like Architects when I was in the band, it's because I was writing for both bands. So
yeah.
you're just hearing how I
You,
write. If
yeah,
I have a certain way that I write riffs, or and also like that, you go through phases as a fan of music. Like I've always loved Typo Negative,
mm,
but that was never coming through in Sylosis stuff. But I found ways to like get that into Architects. So songs like New Moral Low Ground, it's like very Typo Negative, like Nine Inch Nails, all that fuzzy guitar tone stuff.
yeah,
And then I was like, oh, I can, there's elements of that Typo Negative influence on a song like Absent for Sylosis.
mm,
So there's a similarity between both bands, but it's all coming from me. Not to sound like I'm being super big headed. Obviously, I did not write all the music in Architects. Dan was writing a lot. I'm not
yeah,
trying to, make inflate my ego, but I think if there's any similarities, it's because it's the same guy doing a lot of the writing and writing these riffs. But yeah, for me, that there was a lot of influences from our youth coming out on the new record, and I
mm,
think people, because I was afraid to bring those in a bit more back in the day, people just attribute it to, even if they don't say Architects, they just think it's like a modern, we're
yeah,
going modern and metalcore because we've got some chuggy riffs. But my youth was Far Beyond Driven, Great Southern Trendkill, Iowa by Slipknot. That, like, you can hear so many, like, to me anyway, like really obviously Slipknot isms on our new music.
yeah.
Like the middle eight section of Deadwood, like the melodic stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I just feel more free to just not care what people think these days, and that happens the older you get. You just
Yeah.
don't care.
Hey, and that's the best way to go about it because at the end of the day, it's like even without music, you're always kind of a semi-creation of what you grew up around. So if you're going to grow up
Yeah, yeah,
listening to something, yeah, of course it's going to influence you. It'd be weird if it didn't. Like if you're
yeah,
like, oh no, I just like Billy Ray Cyrus and Madonna, but I'm a metal guitarist, but I don't listen to metal. Like fuck off, it doesn't happen.
yeah. And that's the thing, and that's, like I said, that's why the band went on hiatus, because I was kind of deliberately cutting off those influences.
Yeah,
They are a big part of me, and I just look back at those records that shaped my youth.
mm,
And the new record, I've said this a lot, but it's how we would have sounded when the band started if we were good enough to play our instruments or write, experienced in writing the music and it coming out how it's supposed to.
yeah,
It's not like we've looked at what's popular now or trying to change our sound. It's looking back at, I mean, I can literally just draw the blueprint from the last record. It's
yeah,
like Far Beyond Driven, Iowa by Slipknot. You've
yeah,
got like, then there's still all the Sylosis elements that we've always had, like the thrashy riffing and the melodic stuff we do and the guitar solos. But there's even, hints of new metal in the new record, because that was the first metal that I got into, because I was, 10 years old and Life is Peachy was out. So,
exactly.
you know,
Yeah. It's one
yeah.
of those things too, because I'm the same. It's hard to escape it, even though, you go through that phase like, oh, I never liked new metal. We all like new metal at one point,
Yeah,
whether you
yeah.
like it or not.
Like I downplay that for years as
Yeah.
again, just like growing up with friends that were, I had friends that were into just death metal, Hate Eternal, Morbid Angel, and they did not like the new metal stuff, and they didn't like anything that was hardcore. So I just like downplay that stuff when I'm with these guys, and then some of my other friends, we just listen to, whatever new metal stuff. Because there was some great new metal. That a huge record for me. I think one of the best, most underrated new metal records of all time, or albums of all time, is American Head Charge, The War of Art.
Yeah.
It's like Faith No More, industrial new metal, and the songs are amazing. The vocalist is insane. Huge influence on me. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just
Good
one of those
times.
things. It's one of those things. It's cool because you got you guys now, and a lot of bands coming out are tapping into those roots of like the new metal or the industrial metal, or like your Slipknots, where I don't know what are they? They're aggressive. Are they new metal? Linkin Park, even, where it's kind of seeping through into. I guess we'll just put a label on it for the sake of putting a label on it: metalcore, deathcore, where all these different elements coming in. It's creating a new sound slowly as well. Like Sylosis, you're doing your own thing. Like, you got someone like a Lorna Shaw mixing orchestra, like almost like Nightwish with death metal at the same time. So all these bands creating this new sound. And I think we're in a new era because it's so easy to digest music, and TikTok has become such a big thing and everyone's blowing up on TikTok. It's just cool to be like, I don't feel it's as gatekeepery anymore. Like
No,
the people are trying to, don't get me wrong, you're always going to have gatekeepers, but for now it's just people will hear something and go, I like that. That's cool. Let's continue that. Is that giving you a lot more freedom? Is that one of the reasons like you kind of came back to doing Sylosis at the same time? I know you came back a while ago, but has it been a freeing experience knowing that you're not necessarily going to get pigeonholed into a genre because you're kind of free a little bit to explore?
yeah, I think so. I
Yeah.
think it's so freeing now with Sylosis, and obviously, I mean, for me, I'd sound like I don't know. I'm just trying to sound like I'm cool or appease the metalheads out there, but I genuinely like I only listen to metal. Like
Yeah.
most of the time, I'm listening to like Testament or Cradle of Filth or whatever. Like I just love heavy music, so I was always going to be writing this kind of stuff anyway. But yeah, I feel more free to not be as concerned if I write something that I think is good and it might sound a bit, I don't know, different to what we've done in the past. I'm not bothered what people are going to say. Whereas I used to, and I think like when you're a teenager or early 20s, you care about what people think so much more than when
Yeah.
you're in your 30s. Yeah,
Good. As a man in his mid 30s right now, I'm 100% on board. He was like, yeah, don't get me
yeah,
wrong. Everything I listen to is metal, 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 and then maybe Aqua or the Vanga Boys. I'll go back to some late 90s bubblegum pop, just be like, I listened to that when I was a kid. And that's kind of like, oh, that was kind of fun when it came on. Then it's metal, metal, metal again. But it is kind of refreshing to hear you say that as well, because you get some people that are like, oh, I don't even listen to metal anymore. I'm like, really, dude? You're in a pretty successful metal band. You sound metal. You're keeping up with the trends. You must be listening to metal. You know what I mean?
honestly, I was having an argument with the guys in the band the other day at rehearsal because they were talking about like a backstage playlist just for us to listen to,
Yeah, yeah,
and they were talking about not being any metal. I was like, why not? I genuinely just want to hear it all the time.
yeah,
I'm not like, oh, I hear metal all day on tour. I need to like listen to easy listening when we're not playing. Well, when people say that, I'm like, what are you doing then? I
yeah.
love I love metal so much. Normally, I go to sleep with like Hate Eternal or Nile, like blast beats. It's like white noise pummeling me to
Yeah.
sleep. I'm just like loving it. But again, like I feel like I'm being a dick, like trying to sound like I'm cool. I only like heavy music, but I just find it so fun. Like heavy music to me is, um, if I'm in a good mood and I just hear a fun heavy riff, it makes me smile. I like it. If I'm pissed off and angry, heavy music's great. You know,
Yep.
it's for me, it's music for all occasions.
Yeah, yeah. To me, yeah, it is a one size fits all to an extent. It's funny that you mentioned the sleep in the metal because I have changed to being a more no, I need a band that's consistently heavy because I tried to fall asleep to Blackwater Park once by
Yeah,
Opeth, and it goes too soft, and then halfway through, and I'm like, holy shit, just wakes me up in the middle of
yeah,
the night. I
yeah.
was like, no, I need that consistency. But no, you're right. It's one of those things. I feel people shouldn't be shy of it. And I don't think it's cool to, if you like metal, pretend like you don't always listen to it. It's good to have that thing. And you're right. It is a music for kind of everything. And I find, and this is the thing I wanted to talk to you about, are you finding that the mainstream, like the TikToks, the Instagram, the Facebook, the YouTube, more people are accepting more extreme and heavier versions of metal? Like you guys are not the softest band in the world, but you don't need to necessarily have a clean chorus anymore to kind of reach people. I think you can be heavy, you can have crushing riffs, and you get the casual fan are now drawn in. I don't know. I'm not up to
Yeah,
date on TikTok as much as I
I
would
mean,
like to, but yeah,
I I don't know about TikTok because I'm not on there
yeah,
really,
no.
and I don't know exactly, but I think it comes back to a lot of the music that I listened to in the 90s or early
Mm,
2000s. If I look at some of the records that we went back to and consider classic albums that inspired us as kids and inspired the new Sylosis record, like Far Beyond Driven by Pantera is unapologetically heavy,
yeah.
but very anthemic and catchy,
Mm,
and doing it in a way which I always used to kind of wary of doing anything that was too hooky or having like a really obvious chorus back in the day. Uh, Whereas when you look at that, or like even Iowa by Slipknot, like the song People Equal Shit, for example, is an anthem. It's not like a radio song. It's not like they were trying
no,
to sell out. It's super heavy, but you can be catchy and anthemic, which is what draws people in at the same time as being a heavy band.
yeah. And do you think it's that it's the energy in the moment? Because it's not, I think with Slipknot, especially on Iowa in the first album, the self-titled, it is all about like just passion. And do you think passion really shows
Yeah,
through? Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, and that's another thing. I haven't really spoken a lot about this. I've done interviews all morning, but the yeah, the vocal delivery on that new record, I was definitely kind of listening and channeling a lot of the Ross Robinson produced records where vocalists sounded like pissed, and
Yeah.
you can hear things in the studio, or he's getting them riled up, or you can hear like throwing plant pots at Corey Taylor's head or whatever. If you listen to like those first two Slipknot records or the Korn stuff, or even that band Glassjaw that Ross Robinson produced,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the vocals are intense.
Yeah.
So that was definitely like a reference point as well. And that I think that can be lacking in more modern music. Everyone tries to like double track their vocals and everything lines up perfectly and deliver everything with precision. Whereas
Yeah.
a lot of those records that I loved as a kid are like very you can hear the personality coming through a lot.
Yeah. And I think personality shows. I think Knock Loose is a good version of that because,
Yeah,
it's just pure. Like that is the definition. When people go, "Oh, that's angry music," I'm like, no. If you want to hear angry music, you listen to hardcore. You listen to like a hate breed. You listen to, and that comes through in some of your stuff as well because I can feel in some of the songs your voice just sounds almost pissed off. I don't know if you are pissed off, but it feels
I
like you're
mean,
pissed
yeah,
off.
sometimes,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
When tracking, I definitely tried to like get into a headspace of what I was talking about, as opposed to, like I said, just trying to deliver the perfect technique and the
mm,
perfect sounding vocal. And I don't, I've never liked to double track my vocals, which is a common production technique where you have one vocal and then one quieter in the mix, and it has its own sound to it. But you have to be perfect and deliver everything exactly the same every time. And I mean, partly I'm just kind of too lazy to do that, but I think you hear more personality when it's just one performance, and you don't need to worry about how it syncs up with another performance. You can just feel it out. But yeah,
Well, that's sometimes the beauty in it too, is like that one take. Like you watch movies and some people go, "Oh, that was the first take the actor did." Robin Williams is a good example. "Oh, that was just improv. That was the first take." I feel it's the same in vocals sometimes because is that the most perfect performance? No, but you're in the moment. You come out, you scream your heart out, you sing your heart out. As long as it's in key enough, if you're doing the clean vocals, like you're
yeah,
just
yeah.
like, "Nah, that's the emotion, capture in a bottle." Do you ever feel like it's hard to get in that headspace sometimes, or is it kind of or maybe after take 5 or 6, it's a bit harder.
Uh, no, I don't usually. I genuinely find tracking vocals really fun, and
Cool.
I think I've always been known more as a guitarist than I am for my vocals, which is fine. And I was a guitarist long before I started doing vocals, but I enjoy recording vocals way more. It's just fun,
There you go.
and it's
And,
not as like
yeah.
technically challenging. It's more just like expressive, so it's always a release, and it's always I think you get an endorphin rush from doing it, and I think like my wife's a psychologist and a yoga teacher, and there's probably all sorts of you know data on
Yeah.
primal screen therapy or like singing and what that can do for you. So yeah, there's something very cathartic about singing, no matter what type of singing you're doing. You always come away feeling like good for the most part. I do.
Well, that's why karaoke's a thing, and it's not open
Yeah.
guitar, on the cruise ship. Like that's why karaoke's a thing. But I was going to say, with screaming and everything as well, because you start as a guitarist and got into it. Did you do the whole I'm going to go on YouTube, try and learn how to scream, or was it something that you just kept belting out until you hit the nail on the head?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, it was tough back in the day. So I started doing vocals properly for the band 2010.
Mm-hmm.
And although YouTube was a thing, it wasn't what it is today in terms of getting good vocal advice. And there's like Melissa Cross DVD, but I found it really confusing and not really that
I'm glad you said
easy.
that. I found it the same. I was like, I feel like I'm missing the step between the explanation and the tutorial. Yeah.
She's like talking about going like, and then people are just screaming. It's like, well, I can't go from to a scream.
Yeah.
You've missed out a huge chunk there where
Yeah.
where that happens. So yeah, I struggled. I used to just like when I drive to my girlfriend's house in the evening, I would try and scream along to stuff or just make sounds. Usually end up, hoarse or tasting blood, doing it totally wrong. And honestly, I put so much effort into my vocals in the past, like 4 or 5 years, and my technique has changed. I sort of changed my technique from the hiatus to Cycle of Suffering when that came out. I was working on my vocals and I kind of changed a few things and had a bit of a breakthrough. But yeah, and I've just pushed myself as a vocalist a lot more recently.
Yeah,
and had some lessons.
Yeah, and I was going to say the lessons do help at the same time, but it is an interesting thing when you start, and I'm glad you mentioned it with the Melissa Cross stuff, because like you said, there is a huge gap now, and YouTube. I see YouTube videos come up, the Extreme Vocal Institute, all those guys where they break it down. Yep. It's such a science, but when I started, I'm sure when you started, it was like, how do you make the rah noise? Like, how do you be Cookie Monster? It is a weird thing, and you worry about blowing your vocal cords out. Do you ever feel like you actually blew out your voice and that it wasn't ever going to be a thing, or?
I mean, every now and then, we always tend to tour in winter, and you always end up getting sick. And the moment you get sick or have like a sore throat and you try and scream, that's worrying because you can push it to where it's already hoarse. You can cause issues there. That's tough to get through. No, I found during the pandemic when I was like demoing for Sign of Things to Come, I don't know how, but I just lost all muscle memory of my vocal technique. I just couldn't make the sound I was trying to make. And I think because I switched techniques, I could project a bit more before Cycle of Suffering in 2017, 2018 when I was getting ready for that record. And I think I progressed into projecting and getting louder and louder to the point where I was losing the technique and I had to have lessons with David from Extreme Vocal Institute to get me back and like and I'd never had any lessons for screaming before. And a lot of people have mentioned that my melodic singing's come on. And did I have lessons? I was having lessons then, but the melodic stuff I could get work on myself. That was okay. But the screaming stuff is so much more technical than people realize. And that's what I really needed help figuring out and trying to learn what's going on, because if you forget the feeling or sensations, you can't see your instrument. It's not like a guitar. I'm like, I know what this hand's supposed to do and where it goes. Whereas when it's your throat and it's like tensing and pushing air, the moment you lose your muscle memory, it's like so confusing. Mate, in a vocalist. Yeah.
I'm so glad you said that, because I, for about 3 years, forgot how to do it all. I'm still trying to get the fry, the high scream back, the growl, the mids, everything was gone. I was like, how did I forget how to do something that was so natural to me? But it's like working out. It's like a sport. Like if you just give it up, your body's like, well, I can't do the high jump anymore. I can't lift the weight anymore. You got to build back up to it. And it's kind of good to hear that it happens to everyone.
You definitely see it where I've seen, I don't want to say who it is, but you see some bands, like older bands who are coming back from a hiatus and maybe they've had 5 or 10 years off. And either the vocalist is just like on it and they're great and they maintain their technique, or they come back and they sound so different and they're just like and all hoarse and they can't do it anymore, and or they've forgotten and they need a bit more practice, because it takes a lot of building up to get back into doing it.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I think that's the benefit and the curse of the vocalist is that you got the easiest load in, but you got to have the most exercise to keep up to.
yeah,
The scratch.
definitely.
But mate,
Yeah.
I'm just looking at the time and I realise we've been talking for nearly half an hour. I've got to let you go in a second. But let's talk
Yeah.
about the Australian tour. You're coming down here with AngelMaker. I know you've been down here with Architects, but that's a whole different beast. It's been what 12 years since Soundwave. That's incredible.
Yep. Yeah.
I know AJ's bringing you back down as well. It's incredible. What are you looking forward to? I know you don't have a lot of time off, but what are you looking forward to seeing? Because Architect fans and Sylosis fans, they are different. It is a different breed. It's a different show.
Yeah.
Like, what are you looking forward to, and what do you want to say to the Sylosis fans that are coming out?
Well, first off, apologies for taking so long to get back, but we're very grateful to get the chance to come back. I'm very excited. I don't have any real expectations because it's our first time headlining, and the only time Sylosis has been was Soundwave, which is a festival. So it's in terms of gauging what our audience is going to be like. I mean, I've seen the ticket sale, so it's pretty good. So I'm stoked that we're going to have good shows. And just what I know of Australian fans and just Australia in general, I think the shows are going to be great. I think there's a lot of similarities between Australians as a whole with the UK and Australian crowds, and Australian sense of humour, that kind of thing. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I think the shows will be good.
Well, I know the shows are going to be good, and you're playing some of my favourite venues around the country as well.
Oh, so cool!
You're in good hands.
And we've been on tour like for 2 months straight leading up to Christmas.
Yeah.
So it'll be over a month off, but I think we're still like a very well-oiled machine. I think we're the best we've ever been as a live band at the moment, and we're making conscious efforts of that on the last tour. And I've definitely stepped up, as I have as a vocalist, as a frontman, because my vocal abilities have given me more confidence as a frontman. So, I think we're firing on all cylinders and performing better than we ever have.
Yeah.
And I don't even feel like that's sort of something that bands might say. Like, there's no doubt in it. If you look at any footage of us at Soundwave 2013, and then you come see us now, or look at any footage from the last tour, it's a different entity.
Yeah, it's a different beast. And look, mate, it obviously shows because I've got a friend, I won't say his name. He's in a band over in Germany. He's toured with you guys. He's like, dude, are you going to Sylosis show? I'm like, yeah, man. Like, I'm 100% going. He's like, fucking incredible. I was like, yeah, don't worry. I'm going to the show. He's like, good. I'm like, all right.
Take.
All right. So, mate,
nice one.
I cannot wait. It's going to be an absolute blast. We'll see you next week. But
yeah. Come say what's up.
Oh, I definitely will. But until then, everyone, tickets are limited. They're in the comments below. But Josh,
thank you.
See you shortly.
See you then.
Cheers,
Thanks, mate.
Bye.